that's just completely different. It's like two different beings interacting. And yeah, I think there's something powerful to be said about, you know, to keep going through things that are difficult, and oftentimes we don't even realize how much the lens of what we're perceiving reality through is tainted by so many different past experiences or even past life experiences. And actually, the last class, when we did the original innocence and the okayness clearing, the energy of suspicion was running out of my body. And actually, that day after that class, we had a huge breakthrough together, because he felt me really, he felt me just like vomiting energetically all this suspicion energy up, and he's like, "Are you okay? Like, I'm feeling you distressed." And I was like, "Yeah, like, I'm feeling all this energy." And then I got to see our entire time together previously without the lens of suspicion, and we all have different attachment styles. In mine, I've really resonated with that, the description of the anxious avoidant. And the anxious avoidant is, nervous or suspicious about the things in its experience. And then also, in order to avoid that feeling, it will remove itself or, do whatever in order to create safety. And, I guess it was just kind of where I was in my journey, but feeling like every time one of us was like, okay, it's time to end this. Like, we just can't handle the fire of what's burning up inside of both of us, all of our, traumatic experiences or whatever, just burning through these energies. And we just continued, and we just continued, and we just continued. And to be where we are now is astonishing. And it's really beautiful, and I'm excited of how it's transformed my understanding of this, core teaching, the Anatomy of Awakening, which is really like my first kind of original content as far as teaching goes. And everything that I've put out since, the last 3 years is based upon these core principles of the awakening process, of the life journey. So yeah, I'm really excited to see, what we have in store today. I was actually in the shower and got a new download for today's class, because that's just how we do. So yeah, let's get started with just a short little meditation, drop in our bodies. And just relaxing your body as deeply as you can. Breathing slower and deeper. Finding the next layer of tension. And just dropping further in. Just taking a few deep inhales and exhales. Releasing, relaxing. And even if you're feeling everything is still stirring inside of you, just noticing that space that's aware of feeling stirred. It's the place that can't be stirred. It's watching it occur. This is the first transmission of resolving the victim, is just noticing problems that we think that we have are being watched by something that's not having it. Doesn't take away the pain, just gives you reference. And reference is important because it takes you out of the journey and into experiencing. All right, so just as like a beginning understanding of what the anatomy of awakening is and really how it came about was at the end of probably like 2017-ish. I just said to myself, like, I'm done with the healing journey. Like, healing will still occur, but being on a journey of healing is something I'm completely done with. And I didn't really understand the power of those words and really the process, funnily enough, the process that it would take me through in order to integrate what that really meant. Because the healing journey resides and relies on a foundation of there's something wrong with me. There's something to fix, there's something to change. And while this may be true on one level, those changes, those transformations, those evolving processes that you'll find yourself in are actually slowed down by your attempt to access them. They access you at the rate in which you receive your okayness, your original innocence. And original innocence is the foundation of the anatomy of awakening. So instead of going from there's something wrong and I need to fix it, and spiritual principles, processes are what I need in order to make that happen, instead we start at original innocence and okayness and work backwards in understanding how everything is trying to show us that in one way or another. And there are various ways in which this occurs. And 9 times out of 10, it's without your effort, which is the best part. The only effort that is really required of you is to remember. And you're not even really in control of remembering. Remembering is happening to you and through you. Is just reminding you of that remembrance. Original innocence is something that I came up with as I was a child, and my parents are missionaries, and I grew up in a Christian church and Christian school until 8th grade from preschool. And so all of these ideas of original sin, that we are born with sin attached to us, is so prevalent in every area of life, and we often don't even notice it because those of us who weren't raised as religious still have this core belief that is woven into the fabric of the human experience, because it has proliferated itself not as a malicious thing, but as something for us to experience original innocence with something that is opposite of that. Because to be completely originally innocent and never know anything else, there's no contrast, there's no experience, there's just innocence and playfulness and all of that. And that's what we would call heaven, where there's zero attachment to a past experience that is harming or coloring the lens through which you're perceiving life, and thus you're able to experience it and receive others' experiences as pure innocence. As one of my friends said, receiving your perfection is the hardest thing you'll ever do, because it requires you to be in that space of original innocence. That everything you've ever done has been perfect. Even if looking back, you would say, oh, I wouldn't do that now. Because that energy of regret, again, is just the sensation of missing what's actually occurring, because you able to witness it as something that could have been different is you already being different, and that part of you is the only thing capable of seeing that spread, that distance between what was and what could have been. But your awareness of what could have been is the reminder that you've already grown from that experience. So ruminating on it over and over and over again isn't necessarily helpful. And as I mentioned in the anatomy of awakening, or the anatomy of knowing, memory's only function is to provide us value. So if a memory is coming up, it's there for you to receive something deeper. And if you keep ruminating on something that you have regretted or wish could have been different, the value of that is to just recognize that you are different. Or perhaps there is a deeper layer of something there that you can receive by simply asking, what is the most beautiful value that I can receive from this that I haven't before? Original innocence is something that has animated you from the moment you took your first breath. And prior to that, original innocence is in everything and everyone. And those that act completely opposite of original innocence, that are clearly doing things on purpose to harm others, are just that unaware of their original innocence. So how could they operate from their innocence if they're not aware of it, if they're not receiving of it? So in the way, again, when we see someone doing something or behaving in a certain way that is opposite to our own alignments, our own values, if we can witness them in original innocence, we begin to pull them into a reality where more of that is so. But making anyone else wrong, correcting anyone else for anything, except for perhaps if you're a parent talking to a child, but there are ways to do it, is not helpful and is ineffective. It's not wrong, it's just inefficient. You can pull people into innocence just by seeing them as that, regardless of how they're behaving. Their behavior only reflects how much they know their innocence. So why would we make them wrong for that? Only adding to the burden that they hold. So now, as spiritual beings, we focus on the external and we often forget ourselves. So in that same way, your behavior only reflects how much innocence you don't know that you are. And so when your behavior seems to be out of alignment with your deepest truth, love, generosity, peace, harmony, it is simply your job to hold that in innocence. Because why add to the burden by making yourself wrong? So the anatomy of awakening is simply put that we start at original innocence, which resides in the gut. And the first distortion away from original consciousness, original innocence, is a sense of wrongness or sin, or that shouldn't have happened, like these kinds of feelings, ideas, beliefs about life. It distorts that energy, and we raise up from gut level intelligence into the heart. And Ray, you'll know this from Keone's classes, because Uhane, Unihipili, or Unihipili, Uhane, and Amakua, the three centers. So it was interesting because I came up with the three-centered perception concept years ago, and then I was like in Keone's classes, and I'm like, oh my god, this matches perfectly with Hawaiian wisdom. Like, who knew? So anyways, so as you distort out of original innocence, you move into the heart. And the heart is a bridge between the mind and the gut. And on the way towards distorting from spiritual truth, which is, this is how we grow up. We basically start in original innocence. We're made to feel wrong in some way, and consciousness gets fragmented, and that consciousness rises up into the heart space away from the gut in order to protect itself, because it doesn't feel safe here, so it has to raise up into the heart. And in the heart, you have two phenomenon that are either the hero or the rebel. And usually when you're fragmenting as a younger child, or in any moment in your life, you're going up, and then there's like kind of a rebellious energy of essentially trying to resolve that sense of wrongness, that authority figure who made you feel wrong for something. And we rebel. The heart space also contains the hero, which is it requires things to be wrong in order for it to have a role in making them right. So the hero isn't a bad thing, it's just a bridge. So on the way up, we go through the rebel, and then consciousness, as the rebel continues to be pummeled by life, it fragments further into the perception center of the mind. And the mind is either power or powerless. It's powerful or powerless. But there's also a secondary energy that plays out here. So it's the victim or the performer. And both of these are ways in which the mental space of consciousness tries to keep things in balance for itself when it's operating here. So when we're in the mind, the victim is that which can only witness a subtraction of value. No matter what it's looking at, whether it's internal or external, the victim only understands that things are taking away from it. So, on the way back down, as we integrate consciousness, the first thing that we typically resolve is the victim, because the victim is the furthest fragmented piece of consciousness. And as we, descend back into the body, we have to resolve the mind, resolve the victim. And we do that by moving from powerlessness into power. And from the performer's point of view, that powerlessness is constantly needing to look a certain way, or be a certain way, or feel a certain way, or act a certain way for oneself or others in order to receive love. It's that part of us that feel that it's overwhelmed with how much it has to. It's like, the idea of showing up. We want to show up in our lives. It's this part of us that shows up to an extent that it is trying to guarantee that it is okay, because it doesn't know it's okay. It doesn't know it's innocent. It doesn't know others are innocent. And so it's trying to constantly manipulate factors within itself and in its environment in order to maintain a sense of safety, of okayness, of innocence. And from the victim's point of view, that powerlessness into power is understanding that it is impossible to actually be a victim, because to be a victim requires the victim to say, I was harmed by this other person, which on the surface is true. But it requires the victim to say, this is what that person did to me. I'm harmed, I'm traumatized by them. I'll never be the same or okay ever again. This sense of victim. And it's okay to be in the victim, 100%. Being in the victim is highly valuable because it teaches us vulnerability. Because so anytime the victim is showing up in your life, it's like this space to be vulnerable about the emotions. The emotions don't feel safe, and so it elicits the power of the victim to be like, this is why I'm feeling this way, which is fine. Because all it's really doing is pulling up to the surface all the emotions that haven't been met fully yet. And then as we descend further, we go back into the heart. But this time, usually instead of the rebel, you have the hero. Both of these energies can play out, but just in a general rule, on the descent, the hero is what plays this role. And the hero needs a victim in order to create something that is more okay. So it is the most subtle of victims because it requires victims in order to exist. The hero isn't a bad thing either, but typically when people are focused on self-development and these sorts of things that are like all about trying to make yourself better, which is not a bad thing, it's just where is that energy coming from? Is it from the idea that you're not okay the way you are right now? Because if you're not okay how you are right now, a different version of you is just going to look different and still feel not okay. So the hero isn't a bad thing. It's where is the orientation coming from within that energy? Are we trying to make ourselves better just so that we can feel okay? Or is there a more efficient path to doing so? And that's something that we'll explore. And as this energy continues to descend, you go back into gut level intelligence, which is an amalgamation, the combination of the mind and the heart descending into the gut. And this is where presence resides. And just beyond this is something called paradise. And paradise is that space that you could never point to, you could never truly say what it is, but is when we are in presence, there is something just behind that, which is seeing and experiencing. As I said in the Anatomy of Awakening, it's like you are that which is between two panes of glass. On this side, you have physical reality, and on this side, you have all formless energy. And we're sandwiched in between the two, and that sandwich gives us the experience of what it would be like if spirit could take on form. And that is what we are here doing. We are playing a game of what if. And when you understand that you're playing a game of what if, it's much easier to let go of the victim. Because the victim is surely not doing one thing, which is playing the game of what if. It is entirely sure of its experience, which is great. I love the confidence. But it's completely sure that everything is out to get it. For example, this happened to me when was this? Oh my God, it was like a flight the other day, and it was this flicker. I just like felt it for a moment of this victim energy come through, and it was the most hilarious thing. So I'm flying, I get to Cancun, I'm waiting to get my flight the next morning to Miami. And I go to the hotel, they don't have my booking. They don't, like, and it's like 11 o'clock at night. My flight leaves at 7 in the morning. Like, I'm exhausted. And they're like, we don't have your booking. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't have, like, I paid, like, here's my receipt. Like, what are you talking about? You don't have my booking. And they're like, well, yeah, well, like, we just don't have room for you. Like, I'm sorry. And so they refunded me. And then they took me over to this brand new Fairfield Marriott hotel. And it was only like 40 something dollars more for the night or whatever. But it came with breakfast and a shuttle to the airport. So in actuality, it was the same price, but I got to stay in this like much nicer place. And it's realizing that everything is here making your life better, even when it feels like things aren't going your way. And it's just funny because normally oh, you don't have my booking? No problem. But for whatever reason, it was like, this was coming up so strong, probably because I'm teaching this class today. And that's always how these things work. When you have those moments of something is going against you, don't try and fight it. In the moment, I was like, oh, I can't, like, I'm so exhausted. I literally just want to go to sleep. Like, put me in the hallway. I don't care. But life is always doing things to assist you. And if you just let yourself not try and get away from the victim, because that's only going to make the victim feel more victimized. The victim inside of us feels so hurt that when we try and get away from victim consciousness, it actually feels more victimized. And so it continues. Everything that you feel in your experience emotionally is showing you how that emotion feels. We are actually empathing consciousness. The only thing that we're interacting with is light. So when I feel sadness, I am empathing the energy of an aspect of consciousness that we call sadness, and how it feels in my body is how it has felt treated by humanity throughout time. Anger, same thing. Joy, same thing. Who doesn't want to feel joy? When you feel joy, it's like the most abundant thing ever. Because people like to feel that way. They're all just different sensations. So how they feel is how they felt based on how they've been treated by humanity. Just like when you're around someone who's a very hurt person, you can feel that in your body. You can feel the pain that they've been through. Why don't we allow ourselves to notice that about the emotions that we feel? Because we personalize it. So first we have to depersonalize everything. And what's funny is you think that is, people hear, some teachers have heard what I said and they feel like I'm spiritually bypassing. Spiritually bypassing is not depersonalization. It's basically, oh, I'm not feeling it. Depersonalization is essentially stripping yourself of all responsibility for what you're feeling. And then you get to take full responsibility. Because only when things are not your fault can you actually be intimate with them. If sadness is your fault, then there's something wrong with you. If anger is your fault, there is something wrong with you. If depression is your fault, there's something wrong with you. But if none of these things are your fault, then instead of taking them seriously, you can take them sincerely. And when you take things seriously, the energy is an external thing. I take external things seriously. As if there's someone with a gun to my head, I'm going to take that very seriously. If I have an emotion erupting within me, I'm not going to take it seriously. I'm going to take it sincerely, because sincerely, there's a warmth, there's an intimacy to that word. Seriously is harsh, is strong, is masculine, and not that there's anything wrong with masculine qualities, but when it comes to emotionality and how we relate to things, oftentimes, not all times, oftentimes, sincerity around how we're feeling is most important. If I'm feeling abused, I might take that seriously. A little different. But sincerely is to bring things in. Sadness, anger, depression. And when we're not confused with the victim, the lens, the perception of the victim, that all things are subtracting value from us. Because what happens when we feel sadness? We feel that our experience is less than what it could be. What is that? It's victim consciousness, because it is seeing things as only taking away from its experience. I mean, to be completely honest, you know, after we split, I know some of you weren't on the call at that point, but I was talking about how I'm in Brazil again. And I'm here with the Brazilian guy that I was seeing before, and I surprised him and whatnot. But prior to that, after we broke up, like December-ish time, and then into like January timeline, a couple months, was extreme sadness and depression that I was feeling. I wasn't confused that I was sad or depressed. I was with a lot of sadness and depression. And what does sadness and depression do but strip me of all the identifications I had around that relationship and who I was in that relationship? We're always becoming different, and every emotion is how that occurs. As I always say, every emotion is an initiation. When you really understand what that means, everything has a value when it comes to emotions. If I'm depressed, I'm being initiated. Into what? I don't always need to know. Usually it's a little more obvious with sadness, because we typically understand the cause, or what we think is the cause. Because what can actually happen as we're going through this process of awakening is you can have a separation between cause and effect, which is third dimensional understanding of life. There's a cause and there's an effect. But it's the music and the play. We don't necessarily need to be stripped of reasons of why we're feeling things. That is the human aspect of us that's so important. And no place on earth that I've been than Brazil are there people anchored in this understanding that it is okay to be emotional. And my household growing up, emotional meant I was getting my ass whooped. It was not okay for me to feel emotional. And if I expressed how I felt in response to what was occurring, it just meant further problems. So I learned to repress everything. And my angel of a boyfriend, Pisces, capable of feeling everything, brought all of that up inside of me, and he helped me heal it. Brazil the first time was a massive initiation into my emotional body in a degree I did not know was even possible. But we have to go through it. And I honestly feel like the only way I was capable of surviving that emotional intensity is because even though there were elements of the victim coming up out of me in different layers, I always knew the value of what was occurring. So sometimes we would literally be in a fight, which is hilarious because he speaks complete Portuguese and I speak English, and we're learning each other's languages still. So in an argument, I'm like, blah, 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 Google Translate, blah, 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 Google Translate. No, that doesn't make sense. No, that doesn't make sense. And so you like pull yourself back because you're like, whoa, like, this is crazy. We're disagreeing, but there's no way really to agree because we can't really understand each other. So like, what is the point of any of this, right? But I think the power of what occurred is I've never related to someone so deeply, so lovingly, so powerfully, where we don't even speak the same language. And intimate relationships like that have a natural tendency to pull out of you anything that was an intimate relationship to you in the past, which for me was my family, my dad specifically, very abusive to me. And only through time did I notice that I was projecting through my vision, through the victim, onto completely different circumstances. I wasn't even aware of this. And that's why it's innocent. I could dig through my life to try and find these things and just spend my time in a spiritual process, or I can live my life understanding the value of emotions, the initiations in process, and be activated by living my life instead of trying to find spiritual tools to resolve my life. I don't have a life to resolve. I have a life to live. You can spend an entire lifetime spiritually seeking. To me, it is the most annoying thing in existence because I hear people talking about it and I'm like, I'm glad that you're having fun right now and I understand the process you're in. I'm not saying this to these people. But gosh, like I just want you to have way more fun than what you're doing right now because this is awful. And the anatomy of awakening is that. It is the core principle of what helped me get out of a spiritual journey and into actually living my life, which oddly enough is more spiritual now than it ever has been, but it also feels more real. I'm allowed to have any emotion. I'm allowed to ask for what I want. I'm allowed to say what I do not want. I'm allowed to follow my desires without checking in on God, my intuition, or the Akashic records, if it's okay that I do it. Because if I do it, it is okay. And only when I know that everything that I do is okay, will all the things that I do become okay. Because as we align ourselves to our original innocence, we're actually pulling through us that which is already in existence. And we are placing it into everything that we see. You can't resolve the victim. Impossible. Because there is nothing to resolve. The victim is not to be resolved, it's to be admired. You know what the victim does is it protects you from further harm. The victim is like a bumper car. You're like at the circus or whatever, you're driving in your bumper car. If you're in complete original innocence, you have no bumper. Being in your original innocence does not mean that you're not going to feel pain or hurt. It actually means you're going to feel it a lot deeper. And that can feel scary to the victim because the victim doesn't think it's safe to feel those ways. But when you're in your original innocence and you are safe to feel any which way because it does not mean anything about you, then you can allow everything to fully touch you. And when life fully touches you, you are moved and you move more energy because of what you're capable of feeling. Life only gives you what you're capable of feeling. If I had that experience in that relationship prior to when it occurred, I would have been out of there in a heartbeat because my victim would have been way too active in order to go through it. What was being resolved in that, I feel like it's almost like a different relationship. Like, he even said this like, weeks before. He's like, I feel like next time we meet, it's going to be like, we don't even recognize each other. And when I surprised him on the street yesterday in Brazil, I honestly did not recognize him. He looked like a completely different person. And he said that I looked completely different as well. And so it's like a different experience. But in that time, it was the activation of the hero. I needed someone else to be in the victim in order for me to have a role in their life. I couldn't actually be intimate with him. And yesterday I actually cried because we were talking and he was sharing with me how he no longer feels it doesn't matter. But he no longer feels a certain way that essentially like the neediness of each other is gone. And I was feeling that in him, and there was still this one last layer of that hero energy inside of me that wanted him to need me. Otherwise, there was no relationship. But that was surface level. And after I cried that out, I literally felt my energy drop. Because now there's a deeper connection of intimacy that's there that could not have been there prior to that. Here, we're not intimate. In the hero or the victim, we can't be intimate. There are bumpers that literally keep us separated from life because we're afraid to feel. And it's completely okay to be afraid to feel. That's just you meeting your bumper. And if it's okay for you to have a bumper, then it doesn't matter. And slowly that bumper will erode as it becomes safer and safer for you to feel any which way. The victim will always have a reason for why it feels the way it feels. It doesn't really matter to get rid of the story or the reason why you think it has happened, because it's irrelevant. You don't have to tell the sensation inside of you that feels victimized, oh, well, that's, don't try and make it better. Like, if you're feeling victimized, just the best thing that you can do is not try and make your experience better, because you trying to make it better is actually pausing its demise. pausing its unraveling. Just let it be completely shitty. And when it's completely shitty, what you're doing is making it okay for you to feel that way. In that unraveling, then you get to a place of the hero. You're like, okay, now I feel stronger. I'm no longer in this victim space. I feel stronger that I can actually apply myself and do things to make my life better. Which is great. If that's coming from a subtle place of, I'm not okay unless I do this, unless I do 6 days a week of yoga and on the 7th day do qigong, I'm a terrible spiritual being. Then those 6 days plus the 7th of qigong are never going to fulfill you. They're only going to be ways in which you continue to try to perform in order to be okay, in order to feel innocent or good. In fact, there have been times when at first I was really involved with my spiritual practices, like, oh, I got to do this all the time and whatnot. And no, like, obviously it feels good. Doing yoga every day, it feels good. It's great. There's no problem with it. But it depends on, again, how the energy is coming through. And when I was forced through a neck injury to pause my yoga, that in that time period, it was me unraveling this piece of like, I'm not okay unless I'm doing this every day. I can feel my body deteriorating or whatnot, because I'm not doing this practice every day. But what I realized is the pain that I was feeling was actually me dissolving the identity of the one that needs practice in order to know who it is. If you were to let go of all your practices, so you had 0 spiritual practice, not saying that you should do it, I'm just saying, what does that bring up inside of you? Would you be okay? Would you still be a spiritual person? Or are you only spiritual because you have the practices that you do? And that's the only thing maintaining your okayness. Not that you shouldn't do things to maintain okayness. We should always do self-care things. It's just something to be aware of how you're doing the things that you're doing. But don't focus on it too long. Otherwise, you'll just go back into the victim. Just briefly touch on it. Okay, let's go. Because at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter what you're doing. Everything is for you to experience and explore. It's okay for you to fall out of your strict diet. If your strict diet is your sense of self-worth, then there's so much energy in maintaining it. I'm just giving examples of how there is this energy inside of us that is constantly trying to perform to feel okay. That's coming from the mind. And then the victim, which is always feeling like everything is subtracting value from it. That tends to be emotions, or what people cause emotions inside of us to feel. It's really beautiful, the tumultuous nature of, and it just keeps coming up, this, probably because I'm here, in Brazil, and it's just like this whole full circle event of a huge, huge, huge transformation in my life. And to feel and know everything that I felt, even in the moment as it was occurring last time I was here, I never blamed him for how I felt. It was like a hair away from being like too much. And I can handle a lot of emotion. But to feel these things on a 24/7 basis for 2 months being ripped out of your body is a little intense. But only when you're capable of not blaming yourself or others can emotion truly move through you. When we're blaming others or ourselves, it's the only time that we can have trauma. You can't be traumatized if you don't blame yourself or others. It's impossible. And the reason that is so is because trauma just means information input into the nervous system, no output. Trauma could be a word for like collecting. Trauma is just collecting information, collecting emotional programming, emotional code. And you're just like, the computer is taking in the code and it's not doing anything with it. If you don't blame yourself, if you don't blame others, what are you doing? You're just feeling. And when you're just feeling, everything is flowing through you. And that's when you're actually receiving the initiation. On the other side of the initiation is extraordinary tiredness. My partner and I spent like 8 hours yesterday just like crying and talking, like, oh my God, everything that we've been through, and just to be in this space together now is so beautiful. And I slept like 12 hours last night. Like, integration. Initiations typically on the other side will show up with tiredness. And you know what that is a problem for? The performer. Because the performer is like, oh, I gotta do these things, gotta get that done. And that part of you, that performer aspect, is going to drink the coffee, take like 40 times the amount of B12 than you need, like all of these different things in order to get you to keep moving and doing and being productive. Not that being productive is bad. It's just how much energy are we focusing on trying to be okay rather than dissolving into okayness. Whether I slept for 12 hours or I just laid in bed breathing for 12 hours, which I guess they're relatively the same thing, that is allowing things to integrate. It's allowing yourself to dissolve into okayness. You can't fall asleep if you're completely terrified of being attacked. It's not going to happen. Sleep literally means that you're dissolving into okayness. And that's where the body can rejuvenate most deeply. The victim has the biggest bumper on the bumper car because it's constantly blaming others and itself for the experiences that it's having, which in a way protects it from more damage because it preemptively pushes things away. It preemptively pushes itself away. Because to receive it fully would be to be completely intimate, which would mean that you would have to feel. The hero has less of a bumper because it's empowered and emboldened by its sense of power, which is resolved from the mind. So the hero after powerlessness is resolved into power and descends into the heart, that power fuels the hero into transforming life, your life and the lives of those around you, with love. That's what we call heart-centeredness. Heart-centeredness is an incomplete integration of consciousness. It's not wrong to be heart-centered. It's not more or less. It's just not a full integration. A full integration is the mind and the heart dropping into the gut. And the thing that the reason why the hero is not a full integration of consciousness is because the hero cannot understand that suffering, pain, and loss are necessary for consciousness to awaken. It cannot receive the value, which is why it is subtly a victim. The hero is amazing, will do all kinds of things for your life, but it is still a subtle victim which requires things to be victimized, whether internally or externally, in order to have a role. It needs something to fix, whether that's you or someone else. When you don't need fixing, when others don't need fixing, when you're just interfacing with exactly the way they are as they are now, then you receive intimacy. If you're in an intimate relationship with someone and they're doing something that doesn't feel good to you, you still have a right to say what you do and do not like. And they still have a right to do and not do as they please. And then you get to decide whether you keep relating or not. But there's no fixing, there's no changing. It's a conversation. We're just connecting with ourselves, connecting with each other. Because until you can be intimate with your own emotions, how could you ever be intimate with someone else's? Yet at the same time, we're always learning how to be more intimate with ourselves because we learn how to be intimate with others. It's so easy to be okay with other people's sadness because it feels distant enough. We can still feel the sadness, maybe not as intensely as if it were, present in our own reality as much. But you can still feel the sadness that others go through. And it's completely okay for you to experience that. You may still want to change their experience to make them feel happy. But imagine how delightful it would be to experience someone sad and to hold them through that without trying to change their sadness. Because not only are you allowing them to be okay in your presence, regardless of how they're feeling, but you're also making it okay for sadness to feel the way that it feels. And that moment of transmission of your consciousness from gut level intelligence, resolved in both the mind and the heart, transforms all relationships to that particular emotion that you're working with in that moment. So rather than like it being, I'm sad or I'm upset or I'm depressed or whatnot, like what would it be like to just be in a conversation? I'm just having a conversation with sadness right now. And the conversation entails how how it can be cared for. What kind of affection does it need? And what kind of affection do we need ourselves? It's a conversation of intimacy. It's like it is an intimate relationship. Yes, just reading comment. Any more examples of speaking up as to what is wanted without an energy of fixing or changing? Yeah, I really think it's a question-based. It depends. Yeah, it can be tough to dance around that one, but I mean, it can be as simple as like someone giving you like how many. This is actually hilarious. So weirdly twisted codependent when I was in massage school, and I'd be getting a massage from a student, and like because we trade massages in class, and someone would be like doing something, and I'm like, oh, like it could be better this way, but like it's good enough, it's okay, like whatever. But like that's actually not helping anyone, because I'm not having the experience that I really want, and this person isn't learning any better. When you're speaking with extraordinary amounts of love, it really doesn't matter what you say. And I've had to test this out throughout my life in various ways by saying things that sound like they're very harsh from a place of extraordinary love and care. And when you say things from a place of extraordinary love, even if they sound harsh, are really transforming, because people it really does not matter what words you use. It's the energy behind them that matters. And I could tell someone about how they are going through, thinking of one particular friend, going through the same cycle with this relationship over and over and over again, and it's always like a problem. And at first, I was always trying to like offer advice and fix it, like right hero energy. I'm like, oh, like, well, obviously you're continuing down this cycle of the same thing. Like, I don't understand how you don't see this, but okay. To noticing, wait a minute, okay, I keep saying this, they don't change. Got it. Okay, so I'm saying this because I need to say it, and it has nothing of value for this person, and that's why they're not changing. Because if I say something that is needed, then it will produce instantaneous change, because it's like, oh yeah, totally, I needed that, thank you. And that usually happens. But usually when we're in the fixing or changing energy, when we speak up, they don't change or fix anything, because they didn't need that information. Maybe it is for a later date for them, of course. But usually these things can be instantaneous when it is required for them in that moment. So we can speak up and not try and fix and change. And now, same person in that same relationship, this has been going on for years. Now I ask them, about how they're feeling and how they're going through their own process, because they're clearly at a different stage in their development with regards to, relating in these ways. And they have some unknown to me purpose to be with this person for a certain amount of time in order to work whatever it is that they need to work out on a soul level. And so me trying to fix and change that by being like the way they're treating you, obviously you should not be in connection with this person. Like, it just seems obvious. Like, should not be happening. But it continued to happen. And as I just was there for their experience and asked questions to elicit internal insight, they came to their own realizations of their own toxicity and how that toxicity leaving them suddenly transformed the relationship between the two of them. And then that person is upgraded in their own way because they're relating. Anything that we upgrade in our own systems is going to be automatically transferred to someone that we're intimately in love with. And they're going to have to move through that energy as well to whatever degree they can at that moment. So this is how the domino effect of awakening occurs, right? I'm not trying to get this other person to awaken to reality. I simply awaken to the reality of intimacy with how are they feeling? How can I support you through this experience? All of a sudden, now they're more intimate with themselves, which requires that other person to be more intimate with themselves. And as we become more intimate, then we become a magnet for awakening. We don't need to force any changes or fix anything. Those changes and things come to us as a result of how willing we are to be and feel anything. And there will be times when, I guess it's all about relationships today. There will be times when, you're with friends, family, intimate partner, and it's very clear, like, it's time for you to go. And what's interesting is it will be so clear that you can't not do it. So anything before that is just you allowing yourself to be burned alive by all the things that come through that relationship, the emotional purification process. And on the other side of that is you as the fire of emotional purification. You become a purifier of your own environment because you're no longer afraid to feel anything. In any moment when we are afraid to feel something, it's just a moment when we are being burned from the identification with emotion into the one that is interfacing with emotion and is safe to do so. So anything that feels opposite, when we feel sad, we're just being initiated into more coherent happiness. Causeless. Because sadness, anger, all of the quote unquote negative emotions, they always have a cause, or so it appears. And so if something can cause us to feel sad, when we feel sad, that sensation is it ripping out of us causation, allowing us to come into a more natural alignment with happiness. Every emotion is an initiation. So you don't need to manipulate, change, or fix any of your emotions. Your emotions are already doing that for you. You just have to be with them and recognize the value that they're providing you. If you're totally terrified, with how the world is unfolding right now, what is that doing other than allowing you to be in a deeper of alignment of peace, regardless of what is occurring on the outside? Thank you, Kimi. On the other side of it, so the victim, this, a lot of, I mean, I've been teaching this class for a couple of years, but a lot of this is new in how it's being presented. So it's kind of interesting to just watch it all come through. The victim primarily deals with negative emotions when it comes to the mental plane, right? Like victimized by sadness, depression, anger, all these things because those people caused it, or I did something to make me feel this way, so I need to be fixed. The performer, which also lives in the perception center of the mind, on the opposite direction, is going to do anything it can in order to guarantee more time in positive, what we call positive emotions. And not that you shouldn't do things that make you happy. Like that'd be a ridiculous thing to say. You guys should not do anything that makes you happy. It's totally hampering your awakening. No. It's just noticing that there can be a sense of like lack, like we don't have enough of a certain emotion. And we can almost get like frantic about it going away. Which is us just not understanding the seasonality of emotions. And that's okay as well. Because we're all just learning how to be in this human experience as a what if exploration of spirit in form. Positive emotions are what is being activated. Positive emotions, what we think of as positive emotions, are the only ones that are an incoming experience. Positive emotions are an incoming sensation of upgrade. It's an upgrade in process. When you're feeling new levels of joy and expansion and power and pleasure and just gratitude for life, that is an upgrade in your consciousness. And the sensation of the difference in frequency is the feeling of joy. Negative emotions are what, we just, the ones that we don't like as much, typically. To be honest, I get pretty ecstatic when I feel sad, but but that's because I'm well aware of what sadness is doing. So I have a dual experience of being extremely sad and joyful at the same time, because I'm like, wow, I can't imagine what is on the other side of this, to feel this sad. There must be something incredible on the other side of it. But negative emotions are outgoing experiences. They're what's leaving your energy. They are the exit strategy for your awakening process. Negative emotions. In fact, everything is an upgrade, just not all upgrades feel the same. Some upgrades feel low. Sadness, depression, anger. So if you're thinking that you need to change your emotions in any way, it's not really going to do anything other than make you not aware of how your journey is unfolding perfectly already. There's really, in the end of this, there's really nothing. I'm just going to relax here. I'm going to lay down. There's really nothing to do. Like, literally, just let it move through you. I could give you all kinds of processes to assist in the transformation of your consciousness, and we can still do that. It's fun. But letting it move through you is extraordinarily powerful, because in that moment of just dissolving into okayness, which literally just means to rest, you're already in a silent agreement with the universe that you're trusting the process that's unfolding, trusting that it's doing exactly what it's needed to do. And on days when you're hit with so much emotion, you can't possibly do anything that day, then it's not a day to do something. It's a day to just be there and rest. And there are, of course, things that we need to take care of. So we continue taking care of those things regardless of how we feel. And that's another initiation that's very powerful. Something that really, just thinking about how much life I, quote unquote, missed out on. Of course I didn't miss out on anything, but just like the idea of how much time I spent not doing things because I was like, oh my God, I'm just feeling so much, I can't do anything. And now I still carry on with my life. Like, I could be erupting internally with like the most horrific pain emotionally, just, the energy of awakening that's moving through the planet. We're all having our individual experience of what's happening collectively, and still go enjoy a hike, go outside and do something. Like, it's not, when emotions can't stop you from living your life in one way, you've mastered them. Otherwise, you are ruled by your emotions. And yes, just kind of like at weddings, how I always see tears of joy. Oh, tears of joy are the heart opening wider. Yes, exactly. All of these big monumental experiences that we have in life are massive upgrades, and we feel that from each other. And so just witnessing the power of these things. Just gonna pause for a moment and give people space to ask questions, or you can unmute yourself or type in the text box. I'm not going to do any Akashic work today. Feeling like we should leave that for the next class. Today is already feeling quite potent just in what we've covered. And everything that I do is Akashic work. It's just not officially Akashic work. Looks like some people are typing, so I'll just...
I would like to share something.
Absolutely.
On the topic of relationships, I had a date last night, and it just went completely awry. Online, and the woman was playing with her cat, and that's all she did was play with her cat. And I just got to the point where I was like, okay, well, I'll let you go when you're done playing with your cat. Let me know. And it just was so strange to me that, we had 2 dates prior to that, and I was really looking forward to seeing her, and it just seemed so strange that she was just so absorbed by the cat the whole time. So then I left, and I was just like, well, I don't think I could have another date with this person. And I said that. So I said, I don't think I'm the person for you. And then afterwards I was like, God, did I do the right thing? That's just seems so black and white. Why was I so...
I
started questioning myself.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, the moment that you go past, we shoot past our intuition a lot of times, like we know, and then we question ourselves as to like whether we really know. We're like, are we sure I know? But and just that solidity of knowing is, uncomfortable. And sometimes that uncomfortability, we can then question that and be like, oh, maybe I'm uncomfortable because I'm wrong, when actually the uncomfortability is part of the curing process of literally speaking. I mean, we were talking about that earlier, just speaking up about what you want and you don't want.
Yeah.
And being, and it was quite clear for you that it was not something to continue.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry that it didn't work out, but things, that's, what's funny is actually, I was with my friend Dave. I was up in Seattle just before he came to Brazil the first time. And I told him just before I was coming here, I was like, there's like a part of me that secretly hopes like we meet in person and everything falls apart and it doesn't work out. Because that would only mean, as amazing as our connection was from the beginning, that something even better is coming along, because like life is always giving better. So if it's already good and it doesn't work out, that just means something even better is coming along. And you almost get into this, like, I don't know if the right word is sadistic, where you just like almost hope things and you're like I almost hope I don't get that job. Like, it sounds great, but I hope I don't get it, because it only means that something better is going to come along. So it's like, yeah, it's painful, when we have these experiences of people that can't really connect with us in the way that we want, and maybe that's something that you decide, after this call, you're like, well, maybe I actually do want to go on another date and see how it is. Or maybe you don't, whatever. But it's beautiful to be aware of, your convictions. And I always say, like, if it's not 100%, then why settle for 99.99%? Because life is probably going to shoot for 110 anyways. So, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everybody, for listening and allowing me to share.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a few that aren't on the call today, so hopefully they'll catch the replay, yeah. I think it's recording. But anyways. Also, Joshua, I love your background, like your chair and everything. It looks super cool. All right, well, I think that we're gonna just sit for a moment here. I was just sitting inside of myself asking, like, is there anything more that needs to be shared about the victim? And all I heard was, even though it hasn't been a full 2 hours, you don't need to perform more just to make it okay. I was like, okay, got it, clear. So if you guys don't have any questions, I think we'll actually just end it here. Yep, thumbs up. All right, sounds good. I love you guys so much.
I have a question that I put in the chat, Barrett, but it's okay if it's okay if we don't go there too. It's okay.
I know that physical pain is also initiation. Oh, no. Yeah, so basically the question, yeah, like when you're in physical pain, doing things to make yourself feel better. No, the rescuer. One moment, let me just finish. Well, I think there can, it's easy to go into like overdrive in trying to heal physical pain. I think when oftentimes we can feel physical pain and, we can receive insights about like the spiritual aspects of like what this physical pain means and whatnot, which is valuable to some extent. But as long as we're not using that to like try and dig further into like unraveling it, it's unraveling itself in the pain. Like the pain is the sensation of the unraveling of that pattern, whether it's like spiritual, energetic, whatever. But no, I mean, focusing on, healing your body is not in any way being in the hero. The hero notices, there's like a shadow side and, the light side. The hero is that aspect inside of us that's capable of seeing something and creating change when it's needed. It just depends on the orientation of where it's coming from. But I think when it comes to physical pain in particular, like we do need a lot of care and assisting pain to be resolved on a physical level. So no, not in any way do I think there can really be too much promoting too much healing, as long as there's a healthy amount of rest, between different things, because rest honestly is going to do more than we think. You can go to sleep and ask for things to be integrated on your behalf, and assist in that process. But sometimes, physical pain, it is like a meditation, and pain is also extremely grounding. So there's, many positive aspects to it. You don't necessarily need to see the positive aspects to be assisted by pain. But pain is really our capacity to sense, to feel the world. To avoid pain or to not feel pain doesn't mean that you have a higher consciousness. The amount of pain and how deeply you feel it just tells you how integrated your consciousness is. So somehow it got twisted in there that feeling pain in any way means that we're less than in any particular way. And that less than's belief that is like concrete in human culture tells us to try and figure out why we're feeling that way so we can get out of it. That's the hero, the part that's trying to fix that aspect. Being in pain, whether it's emotional or physical, doesn't mean anything about us. It's just a moment of initiating us into deeper care. So whenever we're feeling that way, we should definitely do whatever we can to promote healing and also rest from trying to promote.
Thank you for talking about that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for asking. Anyone else have a comment or question before we close out?
Just to say thanks. Hi everyone. Thank you. It's been really beautiful, very nourishing, nurturing. I enjoyed hearing the stories of your experiences and just feeling the energy that we're all weaving together today. It was just like lovely. Yeah, really great. Thanks, Barrett, and thanks everyone for being here.
Likewise, thank you. And just as a reminder, tomorrow, same time, 2 hours. See you guys then. Love you guys.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Mahalo. Aloha.
Okay, so we're gonna definitely go through some victim things because this was not recording the whole time. Oh well. Shucks. I'll have to catch everyone up somehow else.
I was really hoping it was recording.
Yes.
But I took notes.
Oh, good. Oh, good. All right, my friends. Well, I'll talk to you tomorrow. See you then.
Wonderful.
Ciao, ciao.
Aloha.